Are red dots a fad? Well, I think obviously not, but there's some people disagree. So we're going to talk about it. Let me read this comment I've got on one of my videos explaining red dots. Red dots are better served on rifles. This crap with red dots on handguns is nothing but a social media fad. Now, that's not some one-off comment. I've seen a bunch of those, like a bunch of those comments. And frankly, I think they're a little weird. So I want to talk about what I've seen as far as trends with red dots the last few years. And I'm in a pretty good position to talk about it because I've been doing firearms training the whole time. So I would say 10 years ago, this was a very, very common setup for people to come to class with, predominantly for like USPSA type stuff. But I have people come to my classes who, for all kinds of things, or I'll go do like a military thing or a law enforcement thing. And the common deal 10 years ago was people be shooting a Glock with iron sights or, some kind of polymer frame something. Again, almost always with iron sights. Now, red dots existed on handguns the whole time. Like USPSA Open Division has been red dot the entire time that I've been shooting. And I fired my first match in 2005. And it was red dots galore on the open guns. What happened in the intervening years was that the red dots got better, better and better to the point where they started to be really reliable. This is a good example, an SRO on a Glock. The red dots got more reliable and they got stuck on more and more pistols. People are putting them on their carry guns, they're putting them on competition guns. And then I started to see them more like, again, like 5, 6, 7 years ago, more and more agencies allowing red dots. And then I would say it turned into it like a tsunami of people changing to red dots maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Now, when I go do a open enrollment course and it's like, hey, you can bring whatever you want, I don't care. Bring whatever you want. Um, it is typically 90% of people, if not more, are going to be shooting with red dots on their pistols. That's just the way it is. Now it is to me, it's like it kind of shows how disconnected so many people are that they think this is a fad or some kind of like temporary trend. I don't see it that way at all. Um, why? Okay, well, the examples that people have to follow on social media and other places, they're typically using red dots on their pistols for one. So people tend to emulate what they see, and what they see is people with red dots. The red dots make it faster and easier to shoot targets. That's why people get them. Now, they're a little bit more complicated in some respects as far as training. They're more complicated, like mechanically. I mean, it's not easy for me to know what's going on with this sight. Like if this breaks or something, I just have to get a new one. It's a little bit easier to wrap your head around how iron sights work because they're just hunks of metal that are stuck on the gun. But all that having been said, this has been a sea change in people shooting. Now, this isn't about anyone's preferences. Like I prefer for like USPSA or IPSC style competition, the most fun I've had is shooting international style matches, so like European style IPSC with iron sights. I think it's more challenging with the irons. It's more interesting to me. Some shots that are quite challenging to make, like on the move or at speed with irons, become a lot easier with red dots. So this isn't like a change that I love like competitively. I think competing with irons is more interesting. The same as I think like stock guns are more interesting than race guns in a lot of respects. But that's just a preference thing. The reality is a lot of people are shooting dots. More and more people are shooting dots, and it's bizarre how many people think this is a fad or like a weird like oh I mean that's a social media fad. It's like no, not really. Like that's pretty much what you see as far as people's firearms. Now, do you need to have a red dot? Like no. Like if you have this, if you want to train with it, you want to carry it. It's kind of big, but if you want to carry it, you can compete with it. It's gonna make bullets go where you point the gun, iron sights or red dot. Like this is still an effective tool. without a red dot. But the red dot thing is not a fad. I'm just going to tell you, it's not a weird fad. It's not an internet thing. If you look at what's going on, where people are actively training, improving, trying to get better, um, predominantly they're going to have red dots on their guns, and it's a little concerning. Like, how about this? When people think it's a fad or an internet thing, they're telling me a lot about them. It's like, oh, you don't know what the hell's going on because you're just talking about this on the internet. You're not actually going and doing training or seeing this happen. If you're out there in the world and you're exposed to real firearms training, and it's happening around you all the time, it's like this is not a fad. This is real.